This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Welcome to the Research Talks podcast on Stock Box here with Alan Green. Alan, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Mark. I'm very well. And can I just say, I apologise in advance. You may hear some barking in the background. We have a house full of dogs today, and obviously working from home as we do in lockdown this COVID-riddled environment. It's just one of the hazards of the job. So I apologise for any barking in advance, and I will just continue straight on through.
Okay. Well, it adds charm to the podcast, Alan. So that's fine.
It adds a canine dimension for sure.
A canine dimension for sure, yeah. Okay, so RockFire and Power Metal Resources, I think we're covering today, are we?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So I'll start with RockFire. Of course, this is the RockFire Resources is listed on the London market. It's the company. The EPIC code is ROCK. Appropriately enough, share price is trade as high as 1.7p on the year and as low as 0.7p, where it is just above now, which is significant because, of course, back early this year, the company raised a further 850,000 at 0.7p. So it's very much a floor in the share price and very much, I think, a point at which significant value is on offer. And this, I think, is underscored by the fact that one of the board members, is a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Wally, and he participated in that fundraising, bought 6 million shares, and he now owns 59 million shares in the company and 5.45p. And just going through the recent presentation, what I like is that all of the directors have skin in the game, and certainly David Price, the managing director and CEO, a geologist with some 30 years experience, is very much a key shareholder in the business too. So RockFire is it's an Australia-focused company. I mean, we've of course spoken about many such companies, but its interests lie in Queensland, and of course we've spoken with about other companies there. ECR Minerals, of course, have interests there at Lulworth Range, but RockFire are closer to the coast with their assets. They have 4 key assets. They're all 100% owned, and these are primarily copper prospects and gold prospects. 4 assets in total. The most prolific is Copperhead deposit, which I'll come to in a second. But just a word on the Queensland region. Queensland is responsible for 6% of Australia's annual gold production, and it's got 14 operating gold mines there. Charters Towers is a notable one. 16.5 or 527,000 ounces of gold are produced per annum, and it's estimated there are some 995 million tons of gold, or 32 million ounces, in resources and reserves in the region. Some $128 million. $128 million is spent annually on copper and gold exploration in the region, and also there are 13 operating gold copper mines in the region, producing some 245,000 tons per annum. And again, there is an estimate of some 17.7 million tons of defined copper resources and reserves in the Queensland area. So highly prospective all round. Also, of course, it's very hot there. Lots of saltwater crocodiles and other wildlife to contend with, but nonetheless, it's highly prospective for minerals. So firstly, of course, is the Copperhead deposit. A lot of history there. So it's been explored by 13 different companies across the years. Formerly known as Julivon Creek. That's the historical reference to the Copperhead deposit. It's the Copperhead, along with the other assets owned by RockFire, is also quite close to a massive copper refinery. It's about 200 kilometres from a copper refinery, and that's owned by Glencore. So, of course, once the stuff is out of the ground, it's a relatively easy job to transport with good road links to get the copper ore to be refined. So Copperhead has 5 historical drill holes, first drilled in 1972, where visible copper was intersected. A HeliMag survey was undertaken in 2020, which identified what we referred to as a high-density fracture plan to the south and east of the asset. And the company announced literally a week ago, November 29th, the results of the latest assays, confirmed a large copper system there. 1,200 different copper veins have been identified across the asset. And the first hole that was drilled was mineralized along its length, 500 odd meters at 0.14 copper, 0.14% copper, and 244 meters at 0.2% copper, 62 meters at 0.3% copper. And this was referred to by David Price and the team as an outstanding result for the asset. And of course, it means that there is plenty of copper in the ground there. And as we've said many times before, modern mining techniques, data mining, the assets digitally that are available to geologists nowadays means that these old mines and these old or previously drilled territories can be revisited, and often new discoveries are made simply because of the tools and the resources now available. So David Price said the result was outstanding, and they noted vast quantities of quartz, sericite, pyrite, and chalcopyrite veins within the core, all indicative, of course, of a very strong copper result. Currently waiting assay results from hole 2 and hole 3, and the results from holes 4 and 5 are being geologically logged and will be sent off. So we'll have results on that pretty soon. So I think it's shaping up to be a big copper find, and I'm sure in Q1 next year we're going to hear a lot more about Copperhead. So the second asset is southwest of Copperhead. It's called Copper Dome. And again, previous sampling there has indicated high grades of gold and copper. And there's believed to be a 2 kilometer by 1 kilometer magnetic anomaly there, which having been sampled, they found very high grades of gold and copper in the rock chip samples. And there's believed to be a large tonnage target there, so I'm sure we're going to hear more as that's developed. There is another project called Marengo as well. This is also prospective for gold and for copper, but it's this is north of the other targets, and RockFire has said it's seeking a joint venture partner because it's going to really focus all its assets and resources on developing Copperhead, Copper Dome I've just mentioned, and also the Lighthouse and Plateau assets, which are further inland from Copper Dome and Copperhead, and close to the Charters Gold Mine and the Ravenswood Mine, which also incidentally are close to the Lulworth Range assets owned by ECR Minerals. So Lighthouse has the asset there has an indicated and inferred resource of 3.9 million tons of gold at 1.1 grams per ton, and also 6.4 grams per ton silver, so which equates to basically 131,000 ounces of gold and 800,000 ounces of silver. The Lighthouse territory is also adjacent to the Plateau asset as well, and historically it's been explored by a number of major Australian players: Kennecott, Esso Australia, Battle Mountain, Newmont, Aberfoyle, Platonic, and others. And it's believed that there is there is huge potential there for an open pit mine to be developed. It's a huge asset, and indeed the Plateau asset, which is also nearby. There are some very good slides on the most recent presentation. If you go to rockfireresources.com and download the latest presentation, which is on the homepage, you'll see these slides. And there's a very good a slide that illustrates the potential at Plateau, which has a central breccia and an eastern breccia, which is indicative of, it's an estimate there for the central breccia of some 208,000 ounces of gold, 1.5 million ounces of silver, and the eastern breccia some 131,000 ounces of gold with 800,000 ounces of silver. So again, huge potential there. RockFire has said it's going to focus its assets and its efforts on those primary four, and of course, as the company goes forward, there's still plenty of cash in the bank from that raise earlier in the year, and of course, it's supported all the way through by the non-exec director and investor Nicholas Wally, who now holds 5.4% of the company.
Okay, good, excellent. And I don't know, I sometimes feel that the RockFire was it had I wouldn't say following as such, but it was certainly more, I think, talked about in I don't know, years gone by. Do you think it's gone a little bit quiet recently? Do you get that feeling, but you still feel that there's a good investment case to be had? There's maybe a bit more, just to get out there a bit more, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, if you look through there's a lot of detail. It's a very good website, by the way. There's a lot of detail on the website, and in particular, the latest presentation, which really, I think, illustrates and articulates the investment case very well. But I think there are so many companies engaged in exploration work, a lot of projects on the ground at the moment that appear to have good potential. It needs there's an awful lot of work that goes into really establishing the value in an asset. And as we've seen with other companies, there are historical drill holes there. You can go in and drill again, and you might not get the result that you want. But it's about understanding the geology under the ground. We've seen with companies like Kavango, for instance, model out the KSZ or the Kalahari Suture Zone model with a big model. But modeling is great, and obviously the aeromag surveys will give you further indications. Soil sampling will give you further indications. But until you get the drill in the ground, you're never really quite certain what's down there. And also, you can drill into a zone where you think something's there, and you might miss it. By as little as, say, 5 or 10 feet. And there's the old saying, a miss is as good as a mile. So you might come up thinking, oh, well, there's nothing down there. But if you drill, say, 5 feet to the left, then you might hit the mother lode. That's the nature of mining. So that's why I think RockFire have got some great assets here, and of course, copper is very much the metal of the moment for both in terms of the new clean energy economy, and of course electric vehicles, the requirements for batteries and everything else. So I think the investment case here is strong. You've got a refinery just down the road, so the route to market is very clear. Once they prove up, certainly the major target at the moment is the Copperhead deposit. Once that's proven up and we get a JORC estimate, then we can put together a preliminary economic assessment to get the financials and the commercials understood better. And then, of course, we go to PFS and build a mine. Those are the next steps.
Excellent. Okay, good. I always enjoyed the David Price little shorts that he did from site, so I hope we can see some of them again, because it's always nice to see a CEO, particularly a geologist CEO, getting excited about drilling and rocks, etc. So David, if you can get back on site and give us some more of that, that would be very good. But thank you, Alan, for just reassessing the investment case there for RockFire. So Power Metal Resources, then, of course, the IPO spin-out model is getting started now, isn't it? It's actually, it's getting properly underway with Gold and Metal Resources, the pre-IPO financing being announced just this week.
Indeed, it's a really exciting step forward. I know Paul Johnson and the team have been working very hard to bring these together, and this is investors are looking at the Power Metal share price, and we're all shareholders. Mark, I know you are. I am certainly, and I think the great thing about Power Metal Resources, you've got 14 major projects across the world. In Africa, in Australia, and in the USA, and of course, looking to generate value from each project that's the exciting part of the business, because at any time, drilling could reveal the asset that the company's been searching for and that it's believed is there, and that could trigger a value point, just as we've seen with Conroy. I mean, we knew the asset was there with Conroy, but I think when a partner comes in and invests and puts the money in like that, then it's very exciting, because the share price can literally double within a day, or within a couple of days, or go further. And that's, of course, Conroy with the assets in Northern Ireland. Now Power Metal have got 14 of those. It's got 14 assets that could all do the same thing. And of course, the model of Power Metal is, as you say, to spin these assets off into separate companies, whilst keeping some assets in house and working those. And of course, one such asset is the Malopo Farmers project, which is half owned by Power Metal, and of course the other half is owned by Kalahari Key, and now Kavanga Resources have come in and taken a chunk of that. So it's going to be, I think we're going to see a lot of progress from the Malopo Farmers project, which is prospective for copper, nickel, and of course platinum group metals. A lot of work's been undertaken there already. And there's a very good table on the powermetalresources.com website, which it's just a table that shows where each asset is, what the ownership is, and obviously in Power Metal's case, it's just over 50%, and this is highlighted as suitable for a major partner earning, because it's a big project, So I think we're going to hear a lot more about Malopo in next year. But of course, we've some of the Canadian assets were spun off early this year with First Metals, and that's in effect released a further £1 million worth of value into Power Metal, which is very exciting. And the next step, of course, as you said at the start, Mark, is Golden Metal Resources, and this has packaged the Gold Summit project, which has major gold deposits. It includes the former Thor Mountain, the former Pilot Mountain asset owned by Thor Mining, and of course it includes the Garfield and the Stonewall projects packaged up. So it's very much a US packaged mining asset company. And indeed, they've successfully raised, as you said, the initial 750,000 pre-IPO placing this week, which is a big step forward, which will lead on to a listing on the London markets in 2022. And I think, we've spoken about the malaise in mining stocks and the drift in mining stocks really from May this year. A lot of stocks have drifted sideways and slightly downwards. Power Metal is no exception in that regard, but certainly I think that where we are now going to 2022, I do think there's going to be a resurgence at some point. And the thing is, where you've got the quality projects, these quality projects are going to snap back very quickly. We saw what happened with Conroy. Something happens to any one of the projects owned by Power Metal, we're going to see a similar sharp snapback in the valuation in the company. And I think that's what you have to look at. If you're looking at your portfolio of mining companies, then you've got to look at each one and assess the probability or the possibility that some of the projects will come to fruition, and that's where you'll see the value transition occur. So with Power Metal, I've mentioned Malopo Farms. We've got the Haneti nickel project, which is Power Metal has a 35% stake, and with Katoro Gold owning the major part. Drilling is underway there. Exploration continues, and that's prospective for nickel, copper, gold, lithium, and platinum group metals. We then, staying in Botswana, we got the Tati gold and nickel project, which is drilling work is underway there. And then, of course, the Kalahari Copper Belt, the KCB joint venture with Kavango Resources. This is all packaged up into another company. That's Kenya Resources that is making progress. Copper and silver. And then, of course, we have the Ditau Camp rare earths asset as well, which is part of the same project. We then go to Canada. We've got the Silver Peak project, where the Power Metal has a 30% stake, and indeed drilling work underway there. And that, again, that company has been picked out as a company for IPO. It'll be IPO'd separately, possibly on the TSX market, and of course we'll know more about that next year as the team progress that. Then, of course, also in Canada we have the Orthier North project, which is a lithium project, and there's a potential for Power Metal to earn up to 100% here. And indeed, this is early stage. Ground exploration has commenced. We have the uranium prospect at the Athabasca Basin, which is at a similar stage, and this is a recent acquisition for Power Metal. And then, of course, we've already been to the USA with gold metal, but back to the USA, you've got the Alamo Gold project with the possibility to earn up to 75%, and indeed there was a recent update from the Alamo project where gold nuggets were being discovered on the surface. So very exciting work there. And then, of course, for Australia, we've got the new Ballarat Gold Corporation, which is the 50-50 joint venture with Red Rock Resources. And again, awful lot of exploration work done there on the ground around the Ballarat region. Of course, ECR Minerals also has assets just north of Ballarat as well at Creswick. So plenty of progress. We go to Western Australia. You've got the FDR Patterson asset, which is 100% owned, and very exciting development there. And of course, there are geological similarities being observed with the Haverian project, which of course was developed by Greatland Gold, and we all know what happened there. So most recently, there's the Celta asset, which is a uranium asset, was bought into or acquired by Power Metal, also in the same region. So there are so many projects on the go here. Paul and his team are literally working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week to sort of keep the show on the road, and they're doing a great job. So, but I do believe that next year is going to be very much the year for the company. Shares currently trading at 1.5p. They've of course traded as high on the year as 3.5p. We know that. Recent fundraising as well. The company raised just over 1 million at 1.7p. So that's very much a floor value there in terms of the asset, and that money was raised within a few hours on a Sunday afternoon, I believe. So the company's well funded going forward. Also, it's generating plenty of warrant exercises as well. We're seeing plenty of warrant exercises. Plus, of course, Paul Johnson himself sticks his hand in his pocket on a regular basis and buys stock in the open market, and is a major shareholder in the company.
Yes, indeed. Now, given all of that, why do you think, Alan, in your opinion, the share price has been gradually falling? I mean, it kind of hung around just above 2p, didn't it, for quite a while, and it was always trying to break through, and it always kind of managed to hold on to it. Of course, now it seems to have found at least the next floor at 150, but it's still, it's been in a bit of a decline. Why do you think that is?
I was talking about this to someone the other day, and I think what we're seeing is there seems to be more strength on the Canadian and the Australian indices for mining stocks. For AIM and for London markets, there's been this malaise. And it's just affected every small cap stock. Mining stocks, technology stocks, and yet when the good stories arrive, you will see the share price blast into action. And I think there is, in the UK, for UK investors, there is there's a nervousness over Brexit, some of the supply issues, the emergence from COVID with the furlough schemes ending, general uncertainty. I think there's a wider macro picture here that it's not the value in the companies themselves. In fact, as the share prices go down gradually, or have gone down gradually, you're seeing even greater value on offer. But it's markets have a habit of doing this. We've seen it repeated so many times in the past, and then an event takes place, and there's an increase in the underlying requirement for a particular commodity, and all of a sudden the fortunes of stocks mining that commodity turn on a sixpence, and off we go again. And we've also got the bigger picture. You've got a 1.9 trillion infrastructure budget that's been passed by the Biden administration, and that's going to hoover up vast amounts of commodities and resource around the world. China is the world's biggest consumer of commodities, and of course that country itself is coming out of COVID and will resume it'll start to acquire and bring in the commodities required to generate or to fuel the huge expansion that's taking place there. It's got a prodigious appetite for commodities because it's expanding. Somebody once said to me, there are cities the size of London springing up every 5 to 10 years in China, and that's certainly the case. So you think what's needed to fuel that? There's a huge appetite there. So that will continue. And I think the underlying factors supporting an ongoing growth in commodities and what effectively is expected to be a commodity super cycle remain undiminished. During that time, you're going to see the demand ebb and flow, and we're currently seeing an ebb in the sector.
So you feel is it more of a market wide thing rather than a specific issue related to the company, for example?
It's market wide because there are companies that dual listed are seeing more strength in the share prices, relatively speaking, on the ASX market and the TSX market than the UK. And I do believe the UK it's more the macro picture, concerned with investors are just a little worried about what the UK economy is doing, where it's going, and this buffoon of a prime minister we have running the country. It's Christmas party, but that I think there is a bit of a crisis of confidence, but nonetheless, when stories break, such as we've seen, such as the story we saw with Conroy Gold the other week, the share price will explode into action. So
yes, it's a good comparison, that Conroy Gold. In another market, that price would be double where it is now. It'd be around 60, at least. But
easily, So I think the lesson here, you've got RockFire, which is in a great position. Copper is probably the hottest commodity right now. It's the commodity that's most in demand, most needed, and there is a supply squeeze coming up. There are also well-documented supply squeezes coming up for battery metals going forward, and of course, that includes all the metals that Power Metal are in the hunt for. But also, Power Metal, 14 different projects, so it's got 14 times more. The chances of Power Metal's fortunes turning are 14 times greater than companies operating single projects, and I think that's the model. That's the strength of the underlying model with Power Metal, and that's why I think the company just have a great following, and it has has legions of retail investors like us following and owning the stock for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Alan Green, again for your time on the Research Talks. And we will speak again in a week's time. It'll be, the week before Christmas. So
It will. Well, yeah. Brent, maybe we'll have Christmas hats on and be drinking mulled wine. Mark, who knows?
Yes. Well, as long as you're not holding any illegal COVID parties. Cheese and wine, I think, is acceptable. So I think you're in the clear.
Cheese and wine party, a cheese and wine party of one. Okay, but
or a business meeting. You could
or
have
a business meeting. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Alan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like, or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.